All right, so yeah, let's just go ahead and step into the office and we'll go ahead and get started. Are you okay with that?
Sounds good, sir.
All right, have a seat.
Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, I'm Captain Dotson. Your name is?
Lieutenant Dorch.
Awesome. So, Lieutenant Dorch, what would you like for me to call you today?
Lieutenant Dorch is fine.
Okay, I'll call you Lieutenant
Sounds good.
Dorch. So, I'd like to introduce myself. Obviously, Captain Dotson. I am the head behavioral health officer here at Joint Base San Antonio, and you were referred here obviously. But before we get started with today's session, I'd like to know a little bit more about Lieutenant Dorch.
Sounds good. So I just recently joined the Army. I've been in about 7 months. And I'm here today primarily because of an incident that happened between my wife and I. Um, my career is very important to me, so I want to make sure that I'm taking all the steps necessary to get the appropriate help and make sure everything is on track.
All right. So you say your career is very important. You had an incident with your wife.
I did.
All right. Cool. So before we get started, you did sign a few papers out in the lobby as you were going through triage. Did you have any questions about those?
So we talked about privacy. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, sir, definitely. So privacy, pretty much, I respect your privacy. So whatever you don't want to talk about, we don't have to go there. I ask that you be open in your communication, but if things become too sensitive or it's an area that you just don't want to venture into just yet, then I respect that and we won't go there. Just say, hey doc, slow me down, back off a little bit and I'll respect that. Another paper you signed was a confidentiality contract.
Okay.
This pretty much states that anything that we talk about here in this session stays between us. The caveat, though, is if you plan on hurting yourself, hurting your wife, hurting your kids, elderly people, anything that could cause harm to someone's life, then I'm obligated to report. So as long as you don't have any devious thoughts, we're good to go.
Sounds good.
All right. So in addition to that, you did a informed consent. It was a written one, but if I could just have your verbal informed consent, and we can just go ahead and get started. That you're here for help. I'm here to help you, and we're going to work together to accomplish whatever goals that you may have.
That sounds good. I'm ready to go.
All right. So, like you said, you want me to call you Lieutenant Dorch, and you mentioned that you had an incident with your wife. I read over your file, but I would like for you to tell me what exactly happened.
So my wife and I have been married for about 8 years. Our first year was really good, but after that first year, it just turned into a lot of arguing nonstop, and it's just been really rough to maintain our marriage for so long. We have two children, and we had our first child fairly early on. So our oldest, I'm sorry, is 6, and we've just been doing a lot of arguing, especially since then. And being so new to the Army and recently PCSing here in San Antonio, the arguments have escalated far more than they have in the past. And so last week, typical argument started, and trying to maintain my bearing a bit more. And so when she started the argument, I walked away this time. And as I was walking away from her, she came after me, essentially. And so in order to keep from fighting back, I just kind of strong armed her into the door, or I strong armed her and she hit the door. And so she started to bleed. And I tried to convince her to go to a civilian facility for this, but she insisted on going to her primary care manager. So it's created some trust issues with me. She understands, and I told her that if she went to see a military doctor, that it could have an impact on our career, or on my career. and she wanted to go there anyway. And so that's how I ended up in your office.
All right. Um, I'm just curious, what prompted the argument?
So I just recently went through Bolic and completed all of my initial entry training, and we all got really close during that time. And I've just been maintaining contact with a lot of my Bolic friends. And some are female, some are males, and we have group texts, and we try to keep in contact with each other because we really forged bonds during that time. And now that everybody has gone on to their different duty stations, that's one of the only ways we can keep in contact. Everybody's so busy, everybody's across the world. And so she saw text messages from some of my Bolic friends, and she began to accuse me of cheating. But this isn't really the first time she's done it. It's been consistent throughout our relationship. And just, I used to argue back. I used to try to make a case for who I'm texting, but she's not interested. She doesn't care. All she sees is a female's name, and that's what she wants to go with. So I tried to explain it to her. This time I just tried to walk away. And when I walked away, she hit the door.
All right. So it sounds like there's some trust issues on both parts, but mainly in this particular incident, trust issues regarding who your friends are or your battle buddies are. Is it safe to say that she has not met those people yet?
It is, primarily because they hadn't come down here. My family wasn't here yet when we were going through Bolic. We were waiting for that transition. She had to change jobs, so giving her time to readjust to Army life and all that stuff. So since I was going to be so busy, it didn't make sense for her to come just yet. So she didn't have an opportunity to meet everyone. She came to graduation, and I was able to introduce her to people at that point, but she's never been able to spend any substantial amount of time, only because they left. You know, they're not here anymore. And so from that, you know, I always tell her when I'm on FaceTime, bring her over so she can talk to people, but she's not interested, you know.
So you're saying that some of your problem is trust.
Trust on her part,
Okay.
not on mine.
Okay. Awesome. Just curious. You said you guys have been having issues since your second year of marriage. Have you guys went to any kind of couples therapy or marriage therapy?
She tried to convince me early on in our marriage. Uh, we did the counseling before we got married with the pastor, but outside of that, I didn't really see a point in counseling. I thought that, we would be able to work through things and we would have our arguments. I felt like we were having good and bad days like any other couple would. But it's just gotten increasingly worse. And so now I'm at the point where I just don't even know if this marriage is worth it anymore.
All right. So this last incident, how bad would you say it got? If 10 was probably the happiest you've ever been, and 1 was just the worst, the most angry you've ever been, how would you rate that last incident?
So 10 being the happiest I've ever been and 1 being the angriest,
Yeah.
I would say probably about a 2. Yeah, I think for me, the difference with this time and this particular argument is because it jeopardizes so much. She was with me throughout the entire time that I went through the application process. And I don't think the anger was during the argument. I think the anger was how she handled it post argument. I mean, she admitted to the doctors that it was an accident. I didn't punch her. I didn't intentionally hit her. It was literally just a move to get her off of me so that I can, leave the house for a little while, allow things to cool down, calm down, whatever. And she goes and does this, you know what I mean? And so I really feel like she jeopardized what I have here. And I don't think that's cool. It's hard work. This process is long. And for an incident like this, especially since we've been arguing for so long, for her to come in and immediately try to jeopardize my career so early on is problematic for me. And she's been unhappy since she's been in San Antonio. So it might just be time for her to go home.
Oh, wow. Okay. I hear exactly what you're saying. I would like to know, in your words, what would you want to see happen in this relationship? Or what would you need, to continue on?
Continue on in my relationship with my wife.
Well, yeah, if that's what you want. I'm just trying to gauge where you're at as far as your relationship, because you said you're not sure if you want to stick it out.
Right.
I'm just curious, what would happen, what would need to happen if you would like to stick it out?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think it's ultimately going to depend on what type of impact this has on everything that's going on around me. Like I said, I've only been in for a few months, and if I'm already trying to prove myself in my unit and figuring out what's going on there, and then on top of that, they don't think I'm able to function because I have these quote unquote anger issues from a woman who said that it was an accident. This is a problem for me, and I think that's why I don't want to go on. But I think about my children, and home is far. Home is 1,500 miles away, and so wouldn't be able to see them as often, and that's important to me. And so, if that's the case, I'm trying to figure out how to maintain my relationship with my wife and my children so that I can be in their lives. You understand what I'm saying?
I definitely understand what you're saying.
So, I think most immediately it's important for me to work on anger because I believe that's what the Army says, and I want to make things right with the Army and make sure that they understand that I'm in this and I want this, and I've been wanting this for a long time, and I don't want it to be taken away. So I want to meet that goal of getting my anger under control so that I can continue on with my career with this just being a minor thing that happened along the way.
All right. So if I understand correctly, you want my assistance in helping you manage your anger, um, with hopes of maintaining a relationship with your wife, whether it's separate or not, and definitely having involvement in your kid's life, all the while maintaining your military career. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Well, we can definitely work on that. That's why I'm here. As a social worker, I need to be your counselor, your therapist, pretty much a guide in your life to help you navigate through this time right now. So, we'll just continue to move on. I would like to say I think it's very noble of you to open up like this. I see that you're passionate about your family. I see that you're willing to, it appears to me that you're willing to work for your career. You're willing to, obviously stay active father in your children's life. So those are great qualities of a young man such as yourself. So kudos to you.
Thank you, sir.
Definitely. So I'm just interested in your arguments. How often do you guys have arguments? I know it's been on and off for about 7 years, but just give me a snapshot of a week's time. How often would you guys argue, just on average?
I think in a week we're arguing 4 to 5 times a week, and that has been happening since we got here to San Antonio. So since I came a few months earlier, but these last 3 months have just been rough.
All right. And normally, how long do the arguments last?
I would say 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and just depending on her mood that day, what she did at work. She doesn't like her new job, so she's complaining about that. So sometimes she just comes home, and that's the source of the problem. And so then we're dealing with that, and so I just feel like she's bringing her work problems home, and that's not fair to me. I wasn't there, I didn't do it, so I'm just trying to So those arguments last 5 to 10 minutes, but it might be 5 to 10 minutes when I first get home, and another 5 or 10 minutes when we at the, after dinner, because something didn't go right, and it's another 5 to 10 minutes before you go to bed. It's just, so 45 times a week we're arguing 5 to 10 minutes. You times that by 3 or 4 times in the evening, we arguing all day. You get off work, you trying to relax, do something, just chill, and she keeps going.
I got you, Lieutenant George. So you said normally the intensity of these arguments are about a two, right?
Right.
And about 45 times a week. They normally last about 10 minutes. And then it's over, you kind of go one way, she goes the other.
Exactly.
All right, so what do you normally do? What is your self-care in these situations? What do you normally do after these arguments?
After the arguments, I just try to go chill out somewhere. I've been trying something new since she's been here because I have taken her out of our home environment. So I try to decrease the stress as much as possible, but again, I mean, there's only so much you can do when somebody's consistently fighting with you.
Understand. So, once again, that's even smart on your part. It's very mature to kind of walk away, kind of center yourself again before coming back home and obviously facing reality. So it's a good thing you clear your mind. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, it sounds to me that your ultimate goal is to learn how to manage your anger. So with that, I feel like we can work on that. I know you have a few other goals, whether or not you want to stay in this relationship, obviously maintaining your military career. But of all those goals, which one will probably be the most pressing for you? Which one is the most immediate?
I think this deal with the anger piece and how it's going to impact my career, I think most immediately I need to deal with that.
All right. I thought you said that. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So we have this thing. It's called a SMART goal. When we're helping clients and patients, we identify a particular goal, a goal that they obviously choose is the most important to them to work on immediately. And as a partnership with you, I'm here to facilitate that. So SMART goal is an acronym, pretty much specific, measurable, action oriented, realistic, and obviously timely. So that is a very specific goal, anger management. It is very measurable. You're saying that your anger normally shoots up to around a two. In your mind, where do you want to be on that same scale of one being the most angry you've ever been and 10 being the happiest? What is realistic for your daily life, your up tempo?
Um, I would say we've been hovering around a 2 or 3 for a long time. If we could get to a 6,
Okay,
that would be ideal.
that's very realistic. All right, so we normally do 10 sessions here.
Okay.
That's just our standard SOP. However, midway through, we want to reassess and see if we need to extend those 10 sessions, or
Hmm.
if you're close to your goal, you've already achieved it, if we can reduce that back. So within the next 9 sessions, we're trying to get you from a 2 to a 6, correct?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. So if you like, we can kind of make some tasks. You can go home, do your homework. That's what we call it, do homework.
Okay.
Complete those tasks. Come back to your next session. We'll reassess and we'll set more tasks. Each task is to build upon each other and ultimately help you reach your goal. So, just thinking, and let me know how you feel. For your first task, are you able to, one, sit down with your wife, have open dialogue, and try to see things from her perspective? Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, I think I'm open to that mainly because, she sacrificed a lot for me to come here. And so that's the least I can do. I can definitely sit down with her and just figure out where her head is and try to get an understanding for why things are transpiring the way they are. And I need to do that because I need to understand where we are now before this continues to impact our lives. I mean, being unhappy for so long is tough, and I don't want to keep living like this. I don't want to keep being in a relationship that requires me to be so unhappy.
All right. So this will be your first conversation of this sort. what would success look like for you if you was to have this open conversation with your wife following this session?
I think success would be her actually talking back as opposed to arguing back and being honest about how she feels so I know what I'm dealing with. So until she can be honest with me about where she is, I don't know what else I can do to help work on this.
Uh, I think that's another strength of yours. You seem very transparent. You seem to understand, how your career have impacted her life and how things you do perhaps impact her and vice versa. So I'm actually pretty impressed with the young man. That's pretty good.
Thank you.
So we said you'll be back. Normally we have these appointments bi-weekly, so you'll be able to do your homework and follow me then, correct? And we'll be able to reassess where you're at on that same scale. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right. Next thing, what would prevent you from actually achieving that or completing that task?
Of sitting down and talking with her.
Correct.
I think the biggest thing that will prevent us is her. You know, I'm open, I'm willing, and I'm ready to sort of start resolving our issues to work towards a happier place. So she's definitely going to be the biggest barrier. You know, I don't know what she's going to be like when I get home, and so if her mood is off-putting, I don't know if I'd be ready to have that conversation when I see her. You know, so I think over the next couple of days, I'll just have to get a temperature check on her to see where her mind is.
So do you know any of your triggers that would lead to an argument other than perhaps maybe a little
Yeah,
lukewarm attitude?
I'm telling you, if I walked in the door and she's off-putting, it's gonna turn me off, and it's just gonna be all bad, you know. And so I think that would be the biggest trigger if I try to talk to her and she doesn't even want to listen. You know, I think that would really make me upset, and so I'm gonna have to really see if she's wanting to talk about it, you know, and if she doesn't, it's not gonna happen.
But you do know in this case, you know what your triggers are,
Yeah,
so you can try to control your triggers and work on yourself, correct?
I'm trying to walk away, you know.
Well,
I'm trying to walk away.
that's pretty strong of you. Awesome. So once again, we're gonna reassess on your follow-up meeting. I just want to go over what we've talked about today.
Okay.
Make sure I have a clear understanding. Make sure that we have a mutual understanding and agreement on things. And I'll give you homework. We'll schedule a time for in 2 weeks, and you'll come back. So you mentioned that your career is very important to you, and you want to keep your career.
Hmm.
All right. You also mentioned how important your children are, like, pretty much they're the center of your universe. And you love your wife. You guys been together for a while. Been having some communication, trust issues. Um, right now, it sounds as though you're contemplating whether or not you want to stay in this relationship.
Hmm.
Until you make a final decision, though, you want to try to work things out as far as the trusting and communicating a lot better. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. The homework you've been given was to have an open discussion about, the texting incidents and the trust issues without getting upset. Now, you may get a little upset, but obviously you're not going to be a two. You're trying to increase from that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
And then we're going to follow up. We're going to see where you're at, and then we're going to reassess. All right. Did I forget anything?
But I can think of.
All right. So I appreciate your motivation to change. It definitely comes off as that. That's what I'm gathering from you. You seem to be a very mature young man. You know what you want in life. Obviously, you understand the gravity of this incident, and you're willing to improve yourself because, unfortunately, you can't change everyone around you, but you can at least change yourself. So, it's good that you came here and you're seeking that change. Just remember, you have access to me any time of the day. I'm here for you. we're working together in this partnership, and whatever I can do to help you, just let me know.
Sounds good, sir.
All right, if you don't have any more questions, we'll go ahead and do your discharge paper. We'll let you get back to saving the world, and I'll see you in a few weeks, right?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
You too.